Hi everyone. Thank you, Meal Center, for requesting for this presentation to happen. I'm very honored to be here. I will be going over some of the uh, cultural respects of my country, and just will be mostly talking about the uh, general understanding that you might want to have about a whole different country. Not, I'm not trying to go too deep to uh, kind of create that, I guess, lightheartedness in the presentation tone. So um, I'm just gonna go ahead and begin. So here is my screen. Okay. So this is basically I'm Iranian, and um, it's pronounced Iran, not Iran, as a lot of our uh, dear fellow docs, or generally the community around here, I see pronounce it as. So it's Iran. Um, One of the reasons that Iran's, culture and histories of interest of people to kind of learn more about is that it's one of the oldest civilizations in the world. Almost, I mean, the official civilization dates back to almost 2,500 years ago. Uh, there have been some political reformations that happened um, along the way in the more recent past. And this is just a picture of Persepolis, which is the remains of one of the earlier Achaemenid you know civilization. And this is Cyrus the Great, who was the establisher and founder of the dynasty, and he's very revered, and he's also one of the people who have been kind of an avant-garde in terms of creating, equal rights and civil rights, and this is the first charter of human rights that um, um, he set to kind of create in his way of ruling, and he was kind of a one of the first ones to kind of honor that equal right of humans. And this is the extension of their territory. It uh, kind of stretches from uh, the middle of Europe, and like it almost covers Turkey fully, and up to in the west, and it goes up to uh, you possibly covering parts of the world where we call Pakistan and Afghanistan today. So um, they also were one of those civilizations that kind of had um, a record in terms of how much territory they had, but they obviously the current Iranian map is a little bit smaller than that. Uh, Iran is located in a very significant part of the world. It's Middle East, and there's a lot of I wouldn't say controversy because it has a negative connotation, but there are a lot of things strategically and um, kind of politically at stake, and it's a sensitive part of the world, and that kind of gives it a geopolitical significance for geopolitical studies or political influences that Iran has in the Middle East, and due to Middle East being a little bit of a sensitive area, the whole world politically, and this is just an demonstration of how many military bases that U.S. has uh, neighboring Iran, which is interesting. I mean, there is literally none within Iran, and it kind of shows that there is no, kind of an exchange or trade or any significant discourse between Iran and U.S. But uh, kind of to second my previous statement about the importance of uh, the whole Middle East area, is just how interested U.S. is in building military bases all around the place, except for Iran, where they really can't do that. And also one of the things that make uh, Middle East a significant spot is just how much oil they produce, and also how much gas, like natural gas, they produce. So it is definitely one of the things that helps out for that area of the world, Middle East, to be, a sensitive, logistically important part of the world. And this is just a map of Middle East. The countries that are included are Syria, Jordan, UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, Oman, and Yemen, and Saudi Arabia, Palestine. This is just you know, I was just trying to include this in terms of um, how Iran is located in regards to the United States, and just other spots. So one of the major political events that happened in Iran was um, the nuclear deal that they had a couple of years ago, with the 5+1 uh, powers of the world, which is Europe, China, mm, France, Russia, Britain, United States. Um, but the nuclear deal has been, you know, I mean, initially it was trying to be that step from Iran to kind of get out of the isolation it's facing right now in terms of international political or economical engagement. However, it has been under significant, uh, collateral because of how the previous administration of United States kind of tried to pull out of the whole deal. And again, in this administration, the deal is going under investigations, more investigations, to see if there is a point where that the whole world could be more in peace with the nuclear activities in Iran, which is one of the major factors that's used to suppress, or let's be more neutral about that, used to be a point of anxiousness and worriness about Iran, and to be able to build that relationships for on that. A major political event that happened in Iran was around 1980s, where um, the dynasty, the kingdom, and the monarchy system of um, Iran changed to a more republican, uh, or a republican system, definitive republican system, and that was after 2,500, almost 2,500 years. So uh, Iran now is a politically reformed country in form of a republic. Of course, we introduced more democratic, ways to elect leaders and all. However, we have a leader, and that leader stays and remains, and the presidents are the ones who get to rotate over time. And also, Iran is a resourceful country. It has a lot of minerals, but it's not about the minerals, and like iron or cobalt, or uh, metals or oil. It's also about how the general population is so young. So there has been a lot of capacity for uh, the country and the administration to, put in work to be able to kind of utilize that potential of the youth. However, the huge spike that there is in terms of, you know, younger generations' birth rate is something that ends up being an issue, because when they're not accommodated that well and the economy is not up to par with the rate of, birth rate, over time they have to, be the ones who are facing more job market competition. And obviously when there's so much demand for opportunities and all that, there's going to be more competition, and of course less possibility that you find opportunities. So it is something that Iran has been, it could be looked at as both as a positive thing, as a resource, youthful country, but at the same time as something to be, kind of worry of how you're going to manage that uh, generation, especially when it grows to be older. And yeah, it's one of the bigger economies in the Middle East. However, it's been shrinking through time, specifically in regards to how it's isolated, and again, tightly related with the nuclear deal and all that. So, um, despite having, yeah, a lot of different minerals and oil and all that, it has been having a lot of challenges to, actualize a lot of potential that they bring. But of course, I was planning to be not totally like factual. I was trying to show some elements of the culture, and um, more specifically, I think architecture is going to be the theme of what I'm going to be, the pictures I'm going to be showing. This is a monument of a very famous uh, poet in Iran, and what I would like you to pay attention to is more the on the architectural side of things, because I find that most interesting, the Islamic architecture, and all that. So it's the tower, and that is so that's Alborz Mountain, and that's right near Tehran, which is the capital of Iran, and that's also where I was born, and this view is kind of familiar to me. It is not always this snowy and beautiful, but it is generally very. Um, it definitely strikes you when you like take a look at it. It's one of the tallest ones. And this is a part of Iran in the south where a whole desert meets the sea. So this was really interesting. I wanted to include. Let me see if I want to point it out. I would say it's right near Persian Gulf, somewhere near Bushehr, so on the southern side of Iran. So just wanted to demonstrate that. And this is a picture of Iran, Tehran, in a very, very clean day. So it's a almost on average it's a little bit not as clear. The sky isn't as clear as this, but this is just the view of the whole city. This place is somewhat near the high school I used to go to, and I have a lot of memories from that high school, and yeah. So I mean, despite being a huge metropolitan area, it is still green, and there is initiatives to bring that vegetations inside the city. Um, So yeah, it's not totally like a huge metropolitan urban hell. Um, and this is just a mosque, and the architecture of the mosques are very elaborated and to the point it becomes almost absurd. But they're they're like the shapes and all that are very interesting and very patiently worked on. Um, I mean, it kind of ties back to the Islamic traditional background of Iranians, just kind of valuing a lot of their Islamic traditions. So one way to show that you honor, the religion or the practice is just making very, very freaking beautiful buildings that people love to, visit and pray and just kind of gather in terms of in a social regard. This is another huge huge spot that is mostly supposed to be mosques and all that, but there also happens to be a huge park with like in between all these mosques. There are, you can see at least four mosques or more than that in this picture. I'm sure there are like many more around this square. Um, and this one is in Isfahan, which is one of the larger cities after Tehran. And Isfahan is also, one of the cities that has been um, on or off capital of Iran, and also people from Isfahan specifically uh, introduced their city as half of the world. So it's somewhat of an exaggeration, but it's very beautiful. This is just from under a dome. So it's a picture of an under of a dome. It kind of it kind of reminds me personally of the shapes and like the work that's put into the Persian rugs and like uh, I'm not sure if you've seen rugs like that, but you probably could see in this picture. Uh, there's some on the floor, and this is like one of the one of the most appreciated spots on internet that I found about Nasir al-Mulk Mosque. And I guess the most interesting thing is the lighting here, but also the inside architecture is wonderful. There's a so there is this somebody who's praying there. I believe, yeah, here they don't have the rocks down there, but I believe this is temporary. There's usually like rocks, and you can just go pray there. And I mean, obviously, it's going to be a very amazing spiritual experience. This is just another mosque, huge dome. Um, I guess it's not considered dome, probably an arc more so, and lots of like Quran influences are implemented within these architectures. So if you zoom in here, you probably will face a lot of the very influential and very educational uh, like a medley of like what they considered very precious out of Quran, and they just kind of imprinted it into the building and the structure, and uh, obviously the color and like the geometry is also very fascinating. This is for a change a picture of a cathedral in Iran, and just to also have that point where okay, you don't necessarily need to be a Muslim to be able to be in Iran, and specifically if you are either from like a Jewish background or a Christian background or um, Zoroastrians or completely accepted. And as you can see, there's a church here. And so it's not like you're not allowed to practice if you're not from, if you don't practice Islam. And this is I mean, initially I would say this is kind of a bathing house, but then probably through time they decided I mean, they kind of become obsolete. It's not like people would go to bathing houses as often as before. People ended up kind of staying away from that culture and having their own bathrooms, or like uh, showers, I'd say more specifically. But this probably has switched function into something more of a, just, as you can see, there are like some benches and like spots where you can sit on, and possibly there is, a lot of times you can see this architecture used in restaurants, or this art, like this type of buildings being used in restaurants. And yeah, there's a chance that somebody is selling coffee or like food or like Persian food and all that somewhere there, and just kind of uses this space as a serving space. This is a picture of a bazaar, and what I would like you to pay attention to is how the architecture is very similar. And these are buildings, specifically the buildings I've chose are from the same specific origins and like kind of ideas, the Islamic, Iranian architecture, and they kind of share a lot of elements together. And this is just a bazaar, or just a market. Many different, many different functions could happen in any of these, small little shops. But this was really pretty. And this is just a example of how a mansion would, be in like Islamic Persian architecture. And this is another poet I wanted to show, Saadi, which is another very influential Persian poet. Um, he's resting there, and this is also another spot that's very popular, and like, and also he's very revered. So he's uh, one of his most famous poems indicates that, okay, humans are all organs of the same body, and there's no rest, there's no comfortableness for one organ if the others are, um, suffering. So it just kind of binds all the humanity together. And he was very influential and forward looking with the way he viewed the world. So he's very respected and loved by Farsi speakers around the world. And this is just part of a legend, or just kind of a folklore story of Iran. Just wanted to include this. At a time where tyrant was or tyrant was trying to take over Iran, they allowed Iranians to be like, okay, you are uh, you have to present someone who will take a bow and shoot it, and as the furthest, shoot it the furthest they could, and that will be your border. We allow you to, for your border to be, where the thing lands. And of course, this guy just kind of practiced for years and years, not years, probably less than that, but he kind of put his life into that bow. And as soon as he uh, let the bow go, uh, the border of Iran really didn't shrink. I'm not sure if it increased, but he also had to die and sacrifice his life and all his energy through that. So this is one of the most famous stories of Persian culture. His name is Arash Kamandar, or Arash, basically. And this is a little assembly of Persian New Year celebration table. Uh, Specifically, it's called half seen, which is half se sound. So everything on this table, or most of them, start with the sound se, and half means seven. So seven se sound things on this place, which is sear or garlic, seeb or apple, uh, senjed, or I don't know what you call them, but they're similar dates. Samanu, again, like something, a pudding or like a powder. Um, and sabza, which is vegetable or green. Um, Sombol, which is lavender. So yeah, so oh, sorry, it's here actually. But yeah, and then also different symbols of light, symbols of like brightness and clearness, and symbol of life, the eggs, and also the fish, and yeah. So also poetry is significant in times like this. So people read a lot of poetry, specifically from that first poet I showed you. I might get back to that picture once again. And because I talked about Persian food, I also wanted to include my favorite Persian food, which I haven't gotten around to eat much of in US, despite it being not that hard to make. I might probably have to start making myself, but this is basically lamb, kebab, and rice and saffron and some pickles on the side, some lemons, of course the tomato. And this one is like a hybrid of lamb and chicken, so that one is like fire. So yeah, and that's about it. And this was the poet I wanted to show. So this guy is called Hafiz, and he had the whole Quran um, memorized, and that's the reason his name is Hafiz. Hafiz means somebody who has it memorized. So uh, and he's also very influential in Persian culture. Thank you so much for following.